What's up, Spellslingers and Highlander enthusiasts? Havoc here, and today it's time again that we match up two EDH generals in a no-holds-barred, knockdown, drag-out fight to the death. It's time for Top Commander. In today's matchup, things are bound to get a little morbid as we take a trip to the cemetery to find out who is the true mistress of the macabre. We look to answer questions like, what is the best general for EDH recursion, or who is the best regrowth on a stick? So grab your boots and your spade as we stomp through the graveyard to find out who is the top commander of the graveyard. Let's get started with the introductions. And now, introducing the vengeful necromancer, hailing from the clan of Neltoth of the Shard of Jund on the plain of Alara, conqueror of the Dreamfire Draught, speaker of the darkness between the world's heartbeat. She was exiled from Jund but excelled in Grixis. She's the Awakener and the master of the great dragon Skal Keth. She is the Reanimator Elite. It's Meren of Clan Neltoth. Meren is a legendary human shaman for 2 and black-green on a 3/4 body, and being of the 2015 commanders, she's all about those experience counters. The first ability of her text box reads, whenever another creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. The second, at the beginning of your instep, choose target creature card in your graveyard. If that card's converted mana cost is less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, return it straight to the battlefield. Otherwise, put it in your hand. Now, it's pretty clear what this deck wants to be doing. Meren wants you to sack your own creatures to increase her experience counters and then get your choice of creature back either to your hand or directly onto the battlefield. This just screams value here because even if you sack a creature, you know as long as Meren is on the field, you will just get it right back. She is extremely powerful and can be downright oppressive if you're able to cycle the right creatures. And now, the challenger. She's the Marrow Sorcerer amalgam of Yavimaya offshoot in the swamps of Urborg. Seed and spawn of the great Multani himself, she bloomed from rot and ruin and has come to spread both to the world around her. She's wild, she's dark, she's unpredictable, and above all, this awakened elemental avatar is relentless. It's Muldrotha, the Gravetide. Muldrotha is a legendary elemental avatar costing 2 and black-green-blue and is sporting a hefty 6/6 body. Her text box reads, during each of your turns, you may play up to 1 permanent card of each type from your graveyard. Now, I said it in her introduction, but the word that comes to mind for this commander is relentless. Being able to play and then replay all your permanents is just insane. Creatures, artifacts, enchantments, and yes, planeswalkers too. What were they thinking when they developed this thing? Muldrotha is all about keeping the pressure on your opponents because there's only so many exile spells in Magic, and your opponents will have to choose wisely which one of the permanents to use it on, because it will just come right back onto the board your next turn otherwise. If left to her own devices, Muldrotha will just outvalue your opponent, and this creature out of Dominaria is truly scary. Now, in Magic, but especially EDH, Graveyard Shenanigans has got to be one of the most popular archetypes, and there are many ways and commanders that use the graveyard as a resource. We might set up a fight between two of the other ones at a later date, but I picked these two because they are both essentially wanting to do the same thing. They both want to fill the graveyard and cast stuff out of it to make your creatures super value machines. But their abilities are a little different, so we need to match these two potential reanimation generals against each other to see who really is the queen of the graveyard. And who is really the better value engine here? We look to answer that and many other questions on this episode of Top Commander. Round 1. Fight! In our first round, we look at the reliability of these two commanders. How easy is it to pull off or assemble what these commanders are wanting to do? We'll let the Necromancer go first. With Meren, I believe that what she wants to do is actually extremely reliable. You need to pack your deck full of sack outlets because you need to get her XP counters up as fast as you can. But she's been around for a while now, and most people know that you need to remove her as soon as possible before she starts getting out of control. I mean, being able to drop a Fleshbag Marauder, sacking him to himself, and thereby giving you an experience counter, and then doing it all over again for free at the end of your turn is just the dream play for Meren players. And in black and green, there are just so many sack outlets and ways to fill your graveyard via self-mill or dredge, and in all my games with Meren, all I see is reliability. But how reliable is the new girl on the Reanimator block? In terms of reliability, I'm not sure there's much to say about this elemental avatar. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You drop her onto the field and just start recasting all of your stuff that died along the way or that you filled your graveyard with. Her strategy is reliable, and I guess the only thing that I would knock her for is the 6 CMC, and that she's in 3 colors, so there's a greater chance of getting mana screwed to cast her. And on top of that, if you're going to tap out on turn 6 to get her onto the board, then there might be a greater chance that your opponents have found some type of removal to deal with her right away. So, who is more reliable? Well, when I think of reliability, it's all about setup and consistency. Both of these generals will have big targets on their back, so I can't say that one will be removed more over the other, but one thing that Meren needs that Muldrotha doesn't is a sacrifice theme. For the Gravetide, she don't care. Let the permanent stay on the board, sure, it's gonna do work. If you want to get rid of it, that's fine too, I'll just get it right back. She doesn't care if or how it gets to the graveyard, only that if it does happen, she'll just recast it and take you to Super Value Town. So for that reason, I think Muldrotha edges out Meren in the reliability battle, and she gets round 1. Round 2. Fight! Round 2 is all about support. Like I've stated before, these two are very similar in what they want to do, but both will need some help in order to get there. Both of these commanders will need ways to ship stuff to the graveyard, and they both badly need some protection. But to see who is better in the area of support, we once again need to look at their differences. Now, typically, I would say that being in 3 colors is a plus here, but I'm not sure that that's the case when comparing these two in regards to support and what they want to be doing. They both have great ramp because they're both in green, but Muldrotha will have to split her attention to get the blue mana, whereas Meren is actually very streamlined because she only wants the black and green mana. If given the option to add a 3rd color to Meren, I'm not sure she would take it. Her strat is so effective in black and green that I think it would just be a distraction. And the thing that I love about my Meren deck is that its mana curve is actually relatively low compared to other EDH decks. And because of that, I don't have to have as much ramp cards as Muldrotha will need, and that means more gas for Meren. More protection, more creatures to cast and sack and recur, just more of the stuff that Meren wants to get action onto the battlefield. But to her benefit, because of blue, it gives Muldrotha access to things like counter magic, or good card draw, or other ways to protect her like propaganda, and this ensures that she'll get past the early game relatively unscathed. But again, because this deck is incredibly mana hungry, I'm not sure how much of that you'll actually be able to run. So who wins the support battle in round 2? I'm calling it a draw. Maybe I'm just a Meren fanboy here, but when support is the contest, I don't see either of these two needing more or lacking in any meaningful way. So round 2 is a draw in my book. Round 3. Fight! Round 3 will put to test the power level of each commander. Both of these Reanimator commanders are all about value, like I've said before. In a game where you're limited in the number of cards you can have, being able to recast a card essentially lets you cheat that rule. Both Meren and Muldrotha enable this, but whose value is more powerful? For Meren, I think it comes down to her ability to preserve mana. Her ability costs 0 mana, so as her experience counters rise, the amount of value that you get out of her ability just gets higher and higher. This allows you to spend your mana elsewhere on your turn, knowing that her ability will trigger on its own. On Muldrotha's side, sure, she has to spend her mana every turn to recast the spells in her graveyard, but when thinking of power level, how powerful is it to be able to play one permanent of each type out of your graveyard on your turns?
It's going to be really fantastic. It's going to be huge.
This is nuts. Enchantments, planeswalkers, artifacts, and lands. Yeah, don't forget the lands here that can actually help you ramp into more stuff to cast your next turn. If you have the mana, recasting these is just back-breaking, and your opponents will only have so much removal, and they will eventually fall behind in this value race. In my final analysis regarding power level, sure, Meren gives you that savings on your mana base and lets you run non-permanents with a clear conscience, but Muldrotha is just crazy. Her ability to replay all permanents puts her far and above the power of just being able to recast creatures. And where round 1 might have been close, in my mind, round 3 is securely in Muldrotha's corner. So who is the top commander of the Graveyard Shenanigans archetype? I'm going to have to say move over, Meren, because there's a new queen of the graveyard. Now, I don't think I'll unsleeve my Meren deck from Muldrotha, but I can see a lot of people that are probably going to do exactly that, and I can't blame them. When reliability, support, and power level are measured, I think Muldrotha is just the better commander. Muldrotha is so good, and I can see her quickly becoming one of the most popular and powerful commanders in the format. And I think it's because their strategy is just so sound. You want to ramp up so you can get Muldrotha on the field so you can recast your spells. But even if she gets removed or her command tax is just too high, you've already done your part. You have a deck full of powerful permanents in these 3 colors that now you can just cast. And maybe, who knows, you can recast your commander later and get even more value. Dominaria is chock full of powerful and interesting potential commanders, but I think Muldrotha takes the cake. And honestly, I hope that this is a sign of good things to come in the future sets. Not to mention the upcoming Battle Bond and Commander 2018 products that will no doubt give us even more toys to play with and brew around. And again, we are just getting started with the new commanders that came out in Dominaria. I still have much more that I want to show you guys. But again, I want to know what you think. Let's discuss my analysis in the comment section down below. Am I just completely wrong here in who I gave this fight to? Am I forgetting something in my analysis? Is there another area that I should have matched them up against? Or are there other Meren fanboys out there that think she would just wipe the floor with Muldrotha? Also, if you have ideas for future matchups you want to see, let me hear it. I want to see answers to all of this in the comment section down below. And if you like this video and want to see more, please give me a like. It helps out a lot. And if you like my channel, give me a sub. We're getting new subs every day, and we just cracked 400. Now, once we get to 500, we'll do another giveaway, and it's going to be even better. So tell your friends, retweet my videos, and share if you can. Once again, my name is Havoc. Thank you for watching this episode of Top Commander, and we'll see you next time.